Hello everybody, welcome to this video. I'm so excited that you're here because we are starting a new sewing project and I'm feeling pretty good about this one. So I figured we'd pop on the camera, have a little chat, talk you through it. I don't expect this to be a tutorial or anything like that, but it's a bit of a new project type for me and I'm curious about documenting it, talking you through the little details. And today we are talking about making a tote bag. Now for me, I am mostly a garment sewist, and that's how you would know me if you've watched my videos before. Occasionally I'll dabble in quilting, occasionally I'll dabble in some house goods, home items, but realistically majority of my sewing is clothes. I like sewing garments. However, recently I've been really curious about bag making and I was interested in dipping my toe into it without getting the full-on complicated hardware and zippers and all that stuff. Recently, I purchased a lovely, cute little canvas, summer-themed canvas tote bag from Old Navy, which I really like the fabric thickness and the overall size and everything, but there was just a little bit something missing. So over a week or two, I got into putting add-ons to this pre-made, ready-to-wear tote bag, and now it's like my favorite thing ever. I've added some exterior pockets, I've added some short handles, I've zhuzhed it up with like a D-ring, I could hang a little bauble on it, and it's just like my favorite thing right now, and I have a lot of joy carrying it. With that said, I had been, planning on making a tote bag for my partner, Mr. B, for quite a little while. But lately, Mr. B has been really into RC racing, and he wanted something that he can carry, like his Stanley, pack some food, and maybe some extra batteries and tidbits that he wants to bring to the track and whatnot. So I was like, okay, I can do this. We'll revisit this tote bag. And I decided on a different pattern. So I'll show you the pattern first and then we'll talk about the details. This is from the brand Oui Patterns and this is their Earnest bag or Earnest Tote. As you can see, it's a little bit sassier than your average super basic tote. Number one, it's a lot more structured. It has a lot more width. So you can store things in there that are a little bit bigger. It's also got 3 exterior pockets in the front, mirrored on the back, that makes 6, and then 2 side pockets, which makes 8 pockets on the outside. When I was looking at their description, because they put out a little video, which is great, it's always nice to see like an item in action so you can really understand how it functions and if it fits your purposes and needs. This tote bag has a larger pocket in the interior, which is large enough to fit like a magazine or at least an A4 sized piece of paper, something of that size, and some smaller pockets as well. It does not have a top zipper. I may or may not add one. It's not hard to add one. Or I might just do a lobster clasp or something like that. I will probably do a zip for the interior pocket just to place, put your keys securely and maybe your, phone or wallet or something like that. Altogether, I think this is just difficult enough for me to feel excited about it as a bit of a challenge, but not so difficult that I'm feeling overwhelmed. When you are looking at the cutting layout, you'll see that there aren't that many pattern pieces, and all of them are fairly, rectangular and square and just very simple shapes that come together in the sewing, this tote. So here is the plan. I've got the fabric choices already, and these were actually picked up by Mr. B way back when I was initially going to make that other tote, which I didn't end up doing. We have this exterior fabric, which is blue with navy stripes, and it is an upholstery fabric, I believe. I like the idea of using upholstery fabric for things like totes and accessories. They're a little bit more hard wearing. It is polyester, but it also just, sometimes they're water resistant, sometimes they're just a bit more robust, which makes it great for things like bags. So this will be the outside. And then the interior is going to be this fabric, which is almost like a vintage newsprint type of style. It's got, a coffee theme. It says latte, cappuccino, espresso, stuff like that. And this is going to be the interior part where it's needed. Now, when I was looking for some stabilizer, because that's going to be really important for a bag that has structure, I initially had bought something from PELLON. Now, PELLON is pretty common and accessible here in Canada where I live, and they're just kind of the most popular brand, and most fabric or craft stores will carry PELLON. I wanted something as stiff and as structured as possible because that's what we were looking for in terms of the finish of the bag. And the only thing I kind of could find at a reasonable price was this kind of thick felt, almost like a felt-like material. It's certainly, maybe 2, possibly even 3 millimeters in thickness, but it is a sew-in type of material. It is not an adhesive type. That was going to be the original plan. But when I was browsing Michael's for some other stuff, they had a different brand. This is called Structure 2, and I've never seen this brand before. Let me see what is the name of this brand. Because I think Structure 2 is the name of the product. FAIRFIELD. So this is the FAIRFIELD brand, and the product is called Structure 2. It's double-sided, medium-weight, fusible interfacing. Now, this feels more like a paper, like a thicker cardstock type of weight. Not as flimsy as something you would use for garment making, but not quite as thick as this. My thought was this might be good if I'm going to be sandwiching it between my outer and my inner layer of fabric, since this particular Earnest bag doesn't call for double, like lining fabric or anything like that. Not that I can tell. So it seems to be just a single layer fabric. They do recommend interfacing if, you need it. But if I am going to do an interior and exterior with interfacing in the middle, the double-sided fusible seems like the better plan here. So I'm really excited to use this. I hope that it will be kind of thick enough for the purpose that I need it for. So this is what we're embarking on today. I've got the pattern all taped together, ready to go. I think we're gonna lay out the fabric today, do some cutting, plan out the interiors. He had requested some kind of a pocket to hold his Stanley, and I gotta figure out how to zhuzh that together. He probably could put it on the outside pockets, but I feel like it won't be as stable. So we're gonna see if we can make him an inside pocket for the Stanley. And otherwise, he also asked for extended shoulder straps instead of the top handle, so that's going to be a little bit of a change as well. I don't anticipate this being a very complicated project, but it will be something that will certainly take a couple of days. But I thought today is as good as any to get started on the Earnest bag. right, I think this is a good time to take a pause, evaluate where we are, talk you through what's been happening in the last little bit, and just do a progress check, right? We're about, I want to say we're like a bit more than 50% done, I think, the entire construction. So, side note, I'm going to be like moving around, hence I have the mic. I just filmed this section like once, and I think got my hair in my mic. Really need a new mic. Okay, beyond that, let's talk about what's been happening. I originally mentioned in the beginning that I was going to try out some different kinds of interfacing and stiffener for this project. The original project just asked you to use regular cotton canvas, which is fine, totally fine. But because I wanted even more structure and just a bit more hold and shape, it's really the stuff in between the layers that gives you the structure to a bag. And I gotta say, like, I've really enjoyed learning and playing with that and tweaking and almost in a way updating the design based on my own project requirements. So I have added, for one, an inside fabric. So this is outside, this is inside, but you'll notice that they are actually sandwiched together as one piece. Okay, so these are two pieces. What I've done is use that double-sided iron-on adhesive interfacing so that it is now operating as one piece of fabric, so I can follow the instructions, the original instructions, you know, because they only ask for a single piece, except that this is now a stiffer, more structured single piece made from an inside piece and a stiffener in between. The double-sided adhesive so far has worked really well. I don't intend, or I don't think he's going to be washing this necessarily, so I am not worried about the two pieces, you know, coming apart or anything like that. This might just be a spot clean only tote bag, which is fine. So far that has worked great. Something else I've made changes to is I have bound the edges with a knit fabric strip in lieu of turning it under and stitching the fabric. So what the original had asked you to do is, like, if this is your main, they ask you go to the back side, turn it down, stitch it so that from the front it'll just look like this with one line of stitching over there. Because I added the interfacing, I was worried it was going to be too thick. And I just have a regular home domestic sewing machine. If I had something more industrial, like a Juki or a Brother or something like that, I might do that and it might be fine. But I was really concerned about not busting my machine, even if I'm using heavy duty, you know, heavy duty needles. If you ever see this available at your local fabric or craft shop, I highly, highly recommend it. I would say I'm probably not realistically using it for its intended purpose, but that's the whole thing about crafting and making. You can, you know, try using different things for different things. I've started to learn that sewing, in a way, is a little bit like engineering. Like, can you imagine if instead of, you know, doing what I did, like I took engineering, like, I don't know, maybe just like there's the math, there's the problem solving, like it's all there. It's all there, I'm telling you. Anyway, this stuff, I bought it in a roll. My local, very dear, near and dear to my heart fabric store that is still hanging on. They haven't sold yet. Dress Sew is still there, all of you Vancouverites. But they're liquidating some stuff. So I got a roll of this for, I don't know, $1, $2 actually. $1 for the whole roll. They're liquidating some stuff. This is a stretch knit binding, which means, again, it stretches, it recovers. The stretch helps it go around curves. If you're using around curves, they're knits. They're probably a nylon, spandex, something kind of a polyester blend. Great. Get yourself a couple different colors. If you're a crafter or garment sewist, I've used it in other stuff as well. So let's talk about what else has happened. This is the back piece, okay, outside back piece. I have made the interior pocket section. I've done a couple of different things to it. Let me just take this off. The original gives you a pocket piece. Okay, so this is the pocket piece. It will be stitched onto the back, right? So this is a pocket. There are a second layer of pockets like this. But what I've done is I have used a iron-on fleece that you usually use for quilting, small quilting projects, and I've added a quilted layer to this to give it almost like a padded tablet sleeve kind of a feel. I didn't want to use the same type of stiffener I used for something like the outer pieces because I felt it was just too stiff. And again, I was worried that by the time I sew everything together at the edges, I don't know if my sewing machine will be able to like bust through all those layers along with the multiple layers of interfacing. So I decided to go with a kind of a quilted addition, and it's great. I really love it. I would do this again in this exact same way. I just quilted it vertically in columns. This brown bit is the same as the back side. I just folded it over. The additional pockets are not interfaced, so these are a little bit floppy. And then it will go with this front piece. Now, we'll talk about this bit in the middle later, but let's talk about the front piece. I love how this front piece turned out. I think it's adorable. We have a couple of add-ons. The patch is an add-on from me. I bought it at, I want to say like an independent, handmade, collective type of a store. It's a little grumpy puppy. I think it's adorable. So that went on the front pocket. This whole piece right here is part of the original design. I find it a little bit high. If I were to make this again, I will probably lower it by maybe 2 inches or so it's not so high, because right now as it stands, this is a very long, like very tall and narrow pocket. For my purposes, if this was my tote, I don't even know what I would put in here because it's hard to get your hand inside. So I would probably lower it if it was me or if I were to do this again, just a little bit, right? So it's easier to get in and reach to the bottom. But otherwise, I think it's a great design here, and with the contrasting binding at the top, it just looks very clean. I am very happy I made that choice. Then this is the short strap. I haven't stitched it in yet. I just placed it here to get a feel of how it's going to look all together. I think the white webbing strap is fine. I don't know if I have matching thread. If I were to do this again, I might go with a darker strap. Like if a strap was the color of this edge, I think that would also work really well, but those are like minor preferences. So this is going to be the front. That was the back I showed you. In between them is going to be this pocket piece. So this will be the side, right? The side, the front. And I have not started working on the middle, right, that goes around to the side, under, and back to the other side. I haven't quite decided what kind of structure I want to use. Like I said, the original did not ask for interfacing of any kind, so I'm trying to figure this out and work with what I know and what I have as we go along. What I think I'm going to do is take this felt interfacing. This is essentially, it feels like a felt. There's no glue on either side. It's trimmed off of a roll. I use the pattern for the sides to do this one. And what's going to happen is that this will just go all the way around the side. Come around the other way. Hopefully you get the point. I'm going to have to stitch this stiffener in between the inner and outer fabric. So the outer fabric will be the same as this, and the inside will be this. I have to find a way to attach this felt in between them. I don't think glue is a good idea, so I might just kind of stitch a couple of rows to hold it all together. Hopefully that will be fine. And then really with that, we are so close to finishing. That's going to take a little bit of time. I think I might give the guy a D-ring. I have lots of these little hardware bits. If we do a D-ring, maybe like on the edge here, he can hang his keys on there and just tuck it into the pocket. so it's easy access, but also not easy to lose. He didn't ask for any shoulder crossbody straps or anything like that, so I might just leave it as the top handle, or I could install additional rings to the sides in case we want to add a strap later, so the option is there. I haven't decided. The last thing would be that he did ask me initially for a water bottle holder. I had thought about using these side pockets, but I don't think they're big enough. There's not enough space expansion to hold a water bottle unless it's like a super slim one. So I might look at a couple of YouTube videos, see if I could MacGyver that and just put it together for him for the inside. If I can't, he'll just have to deal with no water bottle holder and figure it out himself. So that's where we are. I'm pretty excited that we are definitely halfway past the project. He's got something going on tomorrow that maybe he'll want to take the bag, kind of show it off. So that's my big job for the rest of the day. Let's get back to sewing. Hopefully, I'm not going to keep you for much longer. It's been a few weeks since I finished the tote bag. Well, maybe like 2 weeks, give or take. And we've used the bag for a couple of things already. Currently, I've left it packed from a mini trip to the beach. I wanted to show you the capacity, the type of things that kind of fit in there, and just give you a last bit of a rundown in terms of what I really liked about the bag design-wise, the making process, what I would change, would I make this bag again, this and that. So I'm not sure if it's better to kind of have just the camera looking at the bag or me to hold it. I'll see. If I start pulling things and it's kind of getting in the way, I will detach you from the stand and put you at a different angle. Anyway, this is the bag in all its glory and completion. It's actually a little heavy at the moment because I've got a few things packed in there, which I'll show you. This again is the front, the side, the other side, and the back. No pockets or anything at the back. I have not changed any of the measurements or the general design details of the bag. I have made some changes in terms of the interfacing and the stiffening bits to add structure to the bag. I have added some very minor changes in terms of, like, I use a contrasting binding, stuff like that. I have what else have I done? That's really it. I've done some things to give more structure to the bag, but I haven't changed the sizing or any of the elements. Oh, I've added like a little key holder thingamabobble. Like, that's it. Everything else is as is from the original pattern. Couple things right away I really like from us using it a few times. Grab and go handles. I had asked my partner if he wanted over the shoulder straps, like what does he prefer. I may still eventually put side D-rings or O-rings or whatever it is, do a crossbody strap. But at the moment, in terms of how he likes to carry it and he's going to be the main user of this bag, he does seem to do well just with the grab and go handles up here. And it is big enough that if you really need to stick it up the crook of your arm, you can. But I will say this is mainly designed to be a handheld type of bag. But if you don't like the handheld, this can easily be changed. Just make these straps longer and they can go over your shoulder, no biggie. I have decided in the end to put a bit of a closure to this bag. So I have decided to add a lobster clasp. And actually, after looking at the instructions in detail, they did recommend a lobster clasp. So in terms of how this is holding up and what it's holding, let me show you. From a day at the beach, my partner brought his little rock crawling AC, so he's got a full remote in here. Speaking of something of this size, I find because this bag is quite, I guess, deep this way, you can get a lot of things in here without having to struggle. Like, this goes in here no problem. So if you have like a lunch box or anything that's a bit bigger or wider, that is not a problem whatsoever. I've also got in here kind of a small, medium-sized beach towel. That was no problem. I could have probably fit 2 beach towels in there if I needed to. That empties out the main compartment. Now, I find most of the time we've just kept the lobster clasp closed. That prevents the bag from kind of going like this, which it tends to do if you don't put anything in there. Like, by itself, it likes to flop open around the sides. So I tend to just keep the clasp closed, and like I said, no issues getting in and out. The back side, maybe I'll show you this way. The back side has quite a few pockets. If I were to do this again, I would probably put some kind of a snap closure to this back piece, so it can kind of snap instead of flopping about. It's not a huge deal, more of just like a small nuisance if you care or not. Those back small pockets though can hold a lot of things, like a RC battery pack, should you ever need space for one of those. The little pockets are great for holding like a roller ball, hand sanitizer. It's great for holding like a couple extra pens or something. I didn't actually need to bring pens, but I like the sizing of those back pockets in here. That's worked really well. And then really it's just about the front. So in the front, I've got these pockets, which initially I was a little bit uncertain about because of how narrow and deep the pockets are. Like, they're really deep, but they're so narrow. I'm like, what am I going to ever put in a pocket like this? Apparently, bottle sunscreen fits perfectly. Also, like other small bodily things fit perfectly in there. So that actually worked out quite great. I don't have any keys on here right now, but I love this little add-on. The key ring detail, I'm glad I took the effort to put that in. And then the last thing really is that because of how deep this bag is, like this way, it holds a Kobo quite snugly with no issues. I think this is this a Kobo? I think so. Yeah, a Kobo Clara HD maybe, you know, about this big, and it just slides right into here, no problem. So that's about what this pocket, well, all these pockets hold, and I gotta say, I am so glad I spent the time to put in all the structure, the interfacing. That part almost broke me because by the end I was struggling to sew the binding together because I had added so much structure to the bag. Like when I do this, there is resistance. Like it's still kind of malleable, but it's way stiffer than if I had used the fabric by itself. By the time I got to binding everything, the interior, like the dark blue bits that you see and this bit around the edge, I was this close to giving in because I couldn't make it through my sewing machine. I couldn't quite maneuver it around just the limitations of my domestic machine. It was things were getting in the way, and I just end up hand stitching. So there are probably thousands of teeny tiny hand stitches in order to put the binding on around the edge, and especially around the inside where there were multiple layers by the time you put the front, back, and side pieces together with the additional interior pockets. If I were to do this again, yes, I would still add all the internal structure, but I would trim off as much of the seam allowance as possible, so those areas, which is where you will be sewing, where stitches are, will not have interfacing. I don't know how much of a difference that would make to the actual structure and the way that the bag holds, but at least that will give me a bit of a leeway and just more flexibility in using my sewing machine without the struggle. It was really hard. Certain areas I had interfacing all the way to the edge. Some areas I didn't. I don't know why my little brain didn't think about everything when you put it together, how many layers would be. So I took interfacing, you know, off of some of the seam allowance, the edges, but not out of all of them. So some pieces were just really stiff and just too many layers. So I struggled in that capacity. Overall, I actually think this would make a great work tote with a few small modifications. For example, I would probably change the closure, add a zipper if I could. I don't know about this lobster clasp being a work tote, but if you don't mind that part of it, this is such a good size. I love the side pockets. I couldn't make the water bottle holder work. Like I tried. There's a thing inside. We're not even going to go there. I'm not skill level, like we're not there yet. But I would probably lower these front pockets. I maybe might do a longer shoulder strap, but altogether, it's a really functional size, and a lot of things fit in here without needing to be stacked or turned upside down or sideways. So quite functional. Love the contrasting colors that I decided to use in the end. Of course, we love our little lobster clasp here, or D-ring clasp. And altogether, if you did not spend all that extra time and effort adding in the additional interfacing and the stiffeners, and you were just to follow through with this pattern using canvas fabric as they had intended, easy make. Really straightforward with great results, and I think you would really like it. But I do think if you are a practical utilitarian bag user, you still would want to add your own interfacing to give it nice shape and just, you know, withstand the day-to-day usage. But that's my little maker's process. I hope it was somewhat interesting to you, and I hope that you take some, I guess the takeaway is, don't be afraid to add things that make, you know, designs functional to your purpose, but also don't get your hopes up, because whenever you change something that's tried and true, you are going to face maybe different results, and you got to be okay with taking detour after detour if what you've added hasn't been tested before. That's just all part of the maker's process, and I'm slowly, as a maker, slowly learn to make peace with that part whenever I want to make changes and tweaks to certain designs. Overall, fun experience, and I am so ready to get back into another clothing piece, which will be my next project. See you then. Bye.